Every manage your money like the 1% video is selling you the same rule wearing a different outfit. One splits your paycheck into 15, 65, 20. The next reshuffles those numbers. A third reshuffles them again. And underneath every version, it's the same 3 moves. Spend, protect, grow. Different percentages, identical advice, and all of them lean on one example to close the sale. $96,000 turning into $1.26 million. That example is real. The math checks out. But the promise wrapped around it does not, and I can show you the precise moment it breaks. Because 2 people can follow this rule to the letter, and both come out behind. One for trusting the number, one for worshiping the percentages. I know how that sounds. Let me earn it. Let's start with the number itself, because everything the gurus sell you is built on top of it. The claim is simple. Put $200 a month into the stock market, do it for 40 years, assume a 10% return, because that's roughly what the American market has averaged over the last century, and at the end you're sitting on $1,264,816 grown from $96,000 of your own money. That's an 800% gain on what you put in, and it cost you less than $7 a day. I want to be completely fair to that number. I ran it myself to the cent, and it is exactly right. $200 a month, compounded monthly at 10% for 480 months, really does land on $1.26 million. There is no sleight of hand in the arithmetic. This is not one of those cases where I tell you the guru can't do math. He can. The math is clean, which is exactly why it's so dangerous. Meet Jake. Jake watches this video on a Tuesday night, and by the time it ends, something has clicked. He can see the whole future, the $7 a day, the million at the end, the quiet certainty of it. Jake is a believer now, and believers act. Meet Vanessa. Vanessa watches the same video, and something clicks for her too, but it clicks differently. She doesn't see the million. She sees the percentages. 15, 65, 20. She sees a system to be perfected. And Vanessa is very, very good at perfecting systems. 2 people, 1 number, and in about 10 minutes, both of them are going to end up poorer than a third person who barely paid attention at all. Not because the number was fake, but because of what the number hides and what it does to the people who trust it. Before we follow Jake and Vanessa into their separate mistakes, look at what they're actually arguing about. Every one of these viral money rules, and there are dozens, does the same 3 things with your paycheck. It tells you to spend some, protect some, and grow some. Spend on the life you're actually living. Protect against the month everything goes wrong. Grow the rest so it works while you sleep. That's it. That's the entire architecture, and it has been the entire architecture for as long as anyone has given money advice. The only thing that changes from rule to rule is the split. One says spend 65 and grow 15. Another says spend 50, protect 15, grow 25. A third tells you to spend up to 75 and grow 15. And here's the question none of them will answer for you. Where did those numbers come from? Because if the specific percentages were the secret, if there were one mathematically correct way to slice a paycheck, then the experts would agree on it. There would be a formula. There would be a proof. Instead, every guru has his own split, each one delivered with total confidence, and not one of them can show you the working that says 65 beats, 50 beats, 75. They can't show you because it isn't there. The percentages aren't derived from anything. They're packaging. They're the different outfit on the same body. This matters more than it sounds, because the moment you believe the percentages are the secret, you start optimizing the wrong thing. You pour your attention into the one part of the system that barely moves the outcome, and you take your eye off the 2 things that decide almost everything. Vanessa is about to make that exact mistake, but Jake gets there first, and his is the one that hurts fastest. Jake's mistake is the most understandable one in personal finance, because it comes from actually believing the good news. He's seen the million, he's run the numbers on his own phone, and he draws the reasonable sounding conclusion, if my money is going to grow at 10% a year, why on earth would I let any of it sit still? So Jake goes all in on growth, Every spare dollar goes into the market the day it arrives. He reads about emergency funds. The boring 3 to 6 months of expenses everyone tells you to keep in cash. And he waves it off. Cash earns nothing. Cash is dead money. Why would he park thousands of dollars in a savings account crawling along at a fraction of a percent when that same money could be compounding at 10? On paper, in the world the guru drew for him, Jake is right. Then Jake's life happens the way life actually happens. Somewhere around year 10, the thing arrives that always eventually arrives. A transmission, a hospital bill, a layoff that lands in a bad month. The specifics don't matter. What matters is that it costs about $15,000, and Jake does not have $15,000 in cash because cash was dead money. He has it in the market, so he sells. And this is the trap inside the trap. When you're forced to sell, you don't get to choose when. The emergency doesn't check whether the market is up. Jake liquidates whatever he has to on whatever day the bill is due, and that $15,000 leaves his portfolio and never comes back, because there was never a buffer to refill it from. He didn't just lose $15,000. He lost every dollar those $15,000 would have become over the next 20 years of his plan. We'll put an exact figure on that later. And it's larger than you'd guess. Here's the part the guru's number quietly deleted. The protect bucket isn't the timid, unambitious part of the plan. It's the part that keeps an ordinary emergency from turning into a permanent hole in your growth, and you don't have to accept nothing to hold it. A high-yield savings account today pays around 4%. Real banks, fully insured, while a big-name brick-and-mortar account might pay you 1/10 of that. On $10,000, that's the difference between $50 of interest in a year and $400. The buffer can earn while it waits. It just can't be in the place Jake put everything. The test for where it belongs is simple, and it's 3 things at once. You can reach it within a day, it can't fall in value the week you need it, and it still earns something while it sits. A high-yield savings account clears all 3. The stock market clears exactly none of them at the moment an emergency actually arrives, which is the only moment that counts. Jake trusted the number, and the number was true. It just wasn't the whole truth, and the missing piece cost him. Vanessa's mistake is the opposite of Jake's. And in a way, it's more seductive, because it looks like diligence. Vanessa doesn't rush in. Vanessa researches. She builds a spreadsheet. She reads all the rules, not just the one, all of them, and she starts testing them against each other. Should she run 15, 65, 20, or does the 25, 15, 50, 10 version leave her better off? What if she takes the housing cap from one and the investing floor from another and blends her own? She adjusts a cell, watches the projection change, and adjusts again. She wants to start on the perfect footing, and every week she finds one more variable worth getting right before she begins. This is where I have to slow down, because underneath Vanessa's overthinking is the machinery that actually matters, and it's worth doing properly even though she never quite does. The order of operations for the grow bucket is genuinely close to settled, and it goes like this. First, if your employer offers a match on a 401k, you take it, the whole match, before anything else, because it is the only place in this entire process where someone hands you an instant guaranteed return on your money. On a $65,000 salary, contributing 5% might pull $3,250 a year out of your check, and a typical match adds another $2,600 on top. That is free money no index fund can compete with. Second, once the match is captured, a Roth IRA lets money you've already paid tax on grow and eventually come out untaxed, a rare and genuinely powerful gift from the tax code. Third, inside those accounts, you don't need to be clever. A low-cost index fund buys you a slice of hundreds of companies at once for almost nothing in fees, and it quietly beats the large majority of people who try to outsmart it. Match, then Roth, then index. That is the grow bucket. It fits in 3 sentences. Vanessa knows all of this. She could recite it. That's the tragedy. She spends 2 years perfecting the percentages on top of a machine she never turns on. And for those 2 years, the amount of money actually working for her is 0. Not a small amount. 0. The most sophisticated split in the world applied to an empty account compounds to nothing, because compounding has nothing to compound. And the cruelest detail is the one she can't see from inside the spreadsheet. Those 2 years at the very beginning are the most valuable 2 years she will ever have because they're the ones with the most time left to grow. She's optimizing the cheap variable and spending the expensive one. We'll price that mistake too. It's the biggest one in this whole video. Now, the promise I made at the start. I told you the $1.26 million number was real and that I'd show you the precise moment it breaks. This is the moment. Go back to the original claim. $200 a month, 40 years, 10%. The arithmetic was correct, but look hard at that 10% because everything hangs on it. 10% is roughly the average the American stock market has returned over the last century before inflation. Before inflation, and that is the real sleight of hand. The one that isn't in the arithmetic at all, but in the assumption underneath it. The dollars in your account 40 years from now will not buy what dollars buy today. Inflation eats a few percent every single year, quietly, in the background, for 4 decades. When you strip it out, when you ask not how many dollars you'll have, but how much those dollars are actually worth, the honest long-run return of the market is closer to 6.5%. So let's run the exact same plan again. Same $200 a month. Same 40 years. Same market. The only thing we change is that we tell the truth about inflation. And the number that comes back is $456,724. Not $1.26 million. $456,000. The same contributions, the same discipline, the same 4 decades of patience, and $808,000 of the promised fortune simply evaporates. It was never there. It was a nominal mirage, a number made of dollars that shrink. The real reward for doing everything right is still real, still life-changing, still worth every cent of the effort. It's just not the fantasy, and the entire genre is built on quoting you, the fantasy. And notice what did not happen. The honest number is still extraordinary. $456,000 in today's buying power out of $7 a day and nothing else. No raises assumed, no windfalls, no clever trades. That is a paid-off house or a decade of retirement income conjured out of pocket change and patience. Stripping out the fantasy isn't meant to talk you out of investing. It's the opposite. It's to make sure the plan you commit to is the one that actually shows up, so you're never disappointed into quitting when the mirage fails to arrive. And if you think that's the only place the numbers get slippery, watch this. One of these rules promises that $100 a month for 50 years becomes about $1.4 million. Fine. But compound that exact same $100 monthly instead of once a year. Same money, same rate, just a different unstated assumption about how often interest is applied, and the answer jumps to $1.73 million. Same inputs. A $336,000 difference resting entirely on a convention the guru never bothered to state. That's how loose this stuff is. 2 honest people can follow the same rule and land $300,000 apart and never know why. That's what I promised to earn. The number was real. The promise was not, and now you can see the exact seam where one becomes the other. So if the percentages are theater, and the returns are smaller than advertised, what actually decides how this ends? Let's line up all 3 of our people on the same honest terms and find out. Same market, same real 6.5%. Everyone able to put in $500 a month. 30 years on the clock. Start with Marcus, who did almost nothing clever. Marcus didn't agonize over the perfect split. He picked a sensible one and stopped thinking about it. He didn't chase the 10% fantasy. He expected a realistic return and wasn't rattled when the market wobbled because he'd kept a cash buffer for exactly that reason, so he'd never be forced to sell at the wrong moment. He started on day 1, and he simply never stopped. 30 years later, Marcus has $553,000. Now Jake, the believer, the one who trusted